Hi everyone, it's Nat here. Hope you're doing well. I'm on for the next part of making my garden journals. So today we are going to reinforce the spine. There's something I'd like to do just to reinforce it a little bit. It's not necessary. These file folders are so strong. I've been using a journal made with this and haven't had any problems with it. But I thought just to be safe, because some of the folders I'm using are a lot older than others, that it might help just to add a bit of reinforcement. You can also make that decorative if you want to. Now, what I've done is found some, it's like calico, but it's rather thin. So it's like a linen. I found a piece of scrap that was big enough for me to get my 12 journals worth out of, and I have just ripped them at about 2 inches across. So you could put these on the outside and they'd look really nice and rustic. You can ink them up if you want to. I'm not going to bother today. So they could go on the outside like that. But I think what I'm going to do for mine is just reinforce the inside before we sew our signatures in. So I'll be sticking the pieces just down like that. So as you can see, I've got threads coming off of it everywhere. So I'll have to trim it up before I do that. So we'll do that before we do anything else. So you just want a piece that's as long as your, I mean, if it's a bit short, it doesn't matter too much. I'll have to cut this one maybe a bit shorter. We will see. You can leave it a bit longer too and fray it and have the little frayed bits sticking out the top and the bottom, which looks cute. Get my little trimmy scissors. I was a bit rough when I was pulling this apart, so it's a bit skewed, but that's all right. And probably not the straightest either. But I am making these quite junky. I'm trying not to stress about the little bit things like that. Doesn't all need to be perfect. So I'll put the threads to the side. I'll keep all the threads because there's going to be heaps of them, and may use them on embellishments in the future. So that works out to be pretty well the right size. Just got to fold those bits down as we go. So I will use my Helmars now. I've got to be careful not to put too much glue on because it will definitely show through this. But again, if it does, it's not going to matter too much. So I'm running it quite thinly. I'll just start by doing half of the area. And make sure we get it sort of centered. That doesn't look too bad. It needs to come down a little bit. All right, and I'll give it a light press. I don't want that bit falling over. I'll go in with some more glue afterwards to get the edges down. That's looking good. We're not getting the glue coming through, so. Okay, that's not looking too bad. So we'll just fix the edges up a bit now. See if I can get it out. Usually it comes out too much, so it's probably good that it's not doing that. I think it's because I haven't used it for a while. It's got some dried bits clogged up in there. There. That's better. so we should be able to fold it closed. I think that's quite nice actually. So we'll see how it's going to look. That's going to look quite nice too. Now we've got little bits sticking out there and some threads there. If it annoys you, you can just cut them off, which I'll probably do. I'll probably trim them in a minute. Let's just grab my little scissors here. Just trying not to cut the card. A little bit sticking out won't bother me too much. That's a bit better. Just cut just a little bit. And then there's this thread that's annoying me, so I'll take that off as well. Okay, so that is now ready. A bit more reinforcement there for us to sew our signatures in. So I will make a template. I will do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. A 5 would be good. That would hold things in real nice and sturdy, but it also adds more perforations, which weakens the spine as well. So I think I'll do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, but I'll probably use my trusty crochet thread, and I'll probably double that, and that makes it very nice and strong to hold the signatures in. So for a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, you don't really need to make a template, because you can just shove your needle through the signature around this and just eyeball it. But I'm going to make a template just to make it neater, and also because I'm doing so many of them in the one hit. So I've got this piece of paper which is almost the same length as my cover. It looks like if I chop it off about where these red lines are, it will be the same length as my cover, so I'm going to do that. Got the shaky hand syndrome today. It's still a tad long. Let's have a look. Just a smidgen more off. Cutting anything straight today I think is going to be a bit of a challenge for me. There. Now, what I might do is just rip this down so it's not so wide. Don't want it to. You want it wide enough that if you want to use clips to clip it in, that you've got enough expanse of paper to do that. But that's a little too wide for my liking. So I save this too. I love bits like this to use as journaling spots in my journals or to back tags. So that will be our little template now. So now we just want to figure out where we want our holes to be. So we want the middle one in the middle. So let's just measure. Now I should do inches, shouldn't I? So we're about 8 inches and 8 3/8 by the looks, approximately. Just write that down here. So that would be 4 and 1.5. Yeah, so that's 4 inches and about 3/16 by the look. So that will be our middle there. And then we've just got to figure out where we want the hole either end. So usually I go about 1 inch, 1.5 inches in. So let's try maybe 1.5 inches. That's a 4. I might go 1 inch and 2/8. Looks good. So we do that from this side as well. So that's 1 inch, and not used to using this ruler for my inches. So that's got 3 dots there for where we want our holes. So I'll just make them a little bit bigger. And I'm going to fold the paper on that line. Which isn't quite the middle of the paper, but it doesn't really matter. So that's now our template for where we want our signatures, and they look pretty even from the outside edges, so they should be, and then it's pretty even between the outside and the middle on both sides, so that should be good and hold it in nice and sturdy for us. So the next thing we want to do is poke our holes. Now I do have, I'm not sure which one I want to use. I've got a beautiful awl that the lovely Caroline gave me, which I might end up using. It depends how thick I want the holes, and that again depends on the thread that I'm using, really, to how big I want the holes. I used to poke them all quite big, but then it was a bit loose in that because my threads were so little. So the other thing I like using is this, which I think is a quilling tool, but it's getting a bit bent and damaged. So yeah, and I think sometimes my holes go crooked because of that, but we'll give it a go. Now it's good to have a cradle to do this. I used to use a telephone book, and that would act like a cradle. Lately I've just been using this cardboard to poke holes in everything, but it doesn't really give you the cradle, and sometimes I go off centre, which isn't good. So I might go and find a big book to do it with, and I'll be back in a minute. Looky, I found a big book in the cupboard right next to me, so that was easy. So as you can see, it sort of makes a little cradle there, which may help us. And I'm putting that on top of my cardboard because, it's only thin there. So you go through, which I learnt the hard way. I've got my cutting mat underneath as well, so it won't damage my desk. Usually if I'm doing 3 signatures or something like that, you do all your signatures separate from the cover. But because it's just a 1 signature journal, we put the pages into the cover and do the whole on all of it at the one time. So I do have some big, I think you call these bulldog clips, and I use them to hold the pages all together with a little template in. So this is where you want to make sure you've got your cover up the right way. You've got your pages where you want them and that they're up the way you want them. So we'll just double check that. Because we do have a few pages, I think, that we want in specific places. So push it all together. The envelope can sit down the bottom. Some of them have smaller middle pages, and in that case I like them to be centered. I'll put it in our cover. And then we'll find the center. And this is where I like to push it down with the ruler to make sure that they're well and truly together. And then we'll put our template in. And because we've made it pretty well the same size as our cover, we should be able to get that just where we want it. Now just pushing these pages up a little bit in there. There's a little bit of room at the bottom. They're not sticking out the top, which is good. The template looks like where we want it. Press it all together again. And I use my bulldog clips. I usually just use 2, but you can use 4, and I put 1 up this top side here, and then 1 down the bottom on the other side. And you can flick the bits down, or else your thread gets caught on it all the time when you're sewing it in. Okay, so now we can sit it there and we can see the little dots where we want our holes. Now you want to try and keep the pages closed a bit just to help you find centre, and keeps all the pages together nicely. So I'll grab our little pokey tool and I'll start with the middle hole, and I'll just go slow and steady. Don't want to break my tool. And there we go. And then I'll wriggle it back out again. Ah, it worked. And then I'll do this end. And then the other end. Elbow grease to pull it back out again. I'm waiting for the needle just to pull out. So now the next thing you want to do is take your template out, or else you will sew it into your journal, which isn't too bad because you can just rip it out afterwards, but I have done that a few times. So I just hold my pages together still and move the clips up a bit. Keeps it all together for us while we sew it. Okay, you'll see here I have a different journal in front of me. That's because I went to sew the other one together and my needle broke up the top where it holds the thread, and I couldn't understand why my thread kept slipping out. So I grabbed another needle to use, and I forgot to press record, I think. Or else I thought I pressed it and I hadn't. so I didn't end up filming it all. So I thought I would start the process of sewing it together again so you can see it without my needle breaking this time, hopefully. So I've poked the holes in this one and it's all ready to go. So again, generally for the 3-hole pamphlet stitch, I'd do at least 2 lengths of thread, but because we're doubling it up, I need to do 4. You want that bit left over so that you've got nice long tails to tie off with. I always do too much. Rather do too much than too little though. So then I'm just going to double my thread if I can. And then the hard part for me, which is threading my needle. Oh, I just realised I do have my glasses here. That might help somewhat. So the needle I've got's a bit bigger now, so it won't go through the holes as easy, but I don't think I will break the top of this one. I don't know how I managed to do that. Now, oh, and then I broke my needle threader trying to thread this one, so it's one of those days. And that's almost going through. Looking at the hole, it should be easier than what it is. There, yippee. So we're going to go through the inside middle so that the I tie it off here on the inside. Oh, it's really hard to see the holes in that pattern. Now, is it going to go through? Yep. And we'll leave a nice long tail. And then I'll go up the top through the hole there. I do like to hold the signatures together while I'm doing this a bit. Sometimes that helps you get back through the hole that you've made, I hope. There we go. Sometimes it doesn't quite go through one or pages, so you can undo your clip and have a look where it's getting stuck if you have too much trouble with that. My holes are a bit little for this needle, so it's taking a little bit of wriggly jiggly to get them through. So now I'm going to run it right down to the bottom hole, if I can see it. It's very hard to see in that pattern. And then we go back through the middle. That's where it gets tricky. You don't want to catch the thread that's there. I'll pull that taut a bit. Sometimes it helps me run it through where I want it. Now, are we straight back through? I think we're missing. Oh, are we there? I can feel the needle, but it's on the other side of the page, so I'll try that again. Now it's on the other side. That's where it gets tricky sometimes, that's for sure. Don't want to go poking around too much and ruining the pages. So I think what we'll do here is take our clips off. We've got the other holes sewn together so the pages shouldn't move around too much, and we're just going to go and see if we can see where it's getting hooked. I think it's on one of the sides of this. No. I can feel it. Oh, is it going under? I think it's going under. This is sewn together, I think. It's, oh no, it's not sewn onto a backing, that side is. It must be going under there. So sometimes what I find can help is to go back through your hole from this side. And come back around this side and go through. And there we go. That was a bit tricky. There we go. So we want the tail over one side, and then we want this part underneath the middle over the other side tied off with. So this is where we want to try and tighten it up a bit. So just carefully pull both sides a little. And you want to make sure that these bits on the outside are kind of taut and that there's no obvious sort of buckles or loops or anything anywhere. That's where my needle was getting stuck. You can see it's ripped that page just a little. There. But that's all right, that's not too bad. Could be lots worse. And that's quite taut, and now we're just going to tie it in a double knot. And then I'll just cut it off. You can always dangle something from that if you like. I'm keeping these quite plain, so it's up to whoever ends up with them to add bits and pieces. A bit of lace over here would look nice, or paper or something, if you don't like seeing the binding. So now it's all in nice. So if you do bigger holes, you'd see them a bit more. So you only want to do that if you've got a bigger thread. nice to go through and just make sure we've caught everything. We've managed to put the middle hole just perfect for holding an envelope. So that's worked out nice. So that's 2 journals I've got done now. So there's about another 10 I have to do. So I'll get on and finish those off. So I'll be back on soon to add some pockets and bits and pieces. Not many. I want to keep these quite plain because I want the recipients to fill it up with all their beautiful garden photos and plant tags and information, that sort of thing. So I'll leave this video here, just a short one to get the signatures in. I'll be back to do the pockets and that with you shortly. Take care. See you later. Easier said than done sometimes. That went through, yep, beautiful. Just gonna make sure I haven't caught these threads. A bit harder to pull it through now because there's so many threads. I don't know what happened then. It come. Hang on. It's gone through, but it didn't go through all the way. Bugger. Just got to thread it in my needle again. Don't know how that happened. There, first pop, amazing. Hang on, that didn't work. Oh, I don't know how that happened. It actually broke the tip of my needle. No wonder the thread's not staying in there. Oh no, that was like my favourite too. I would have expected to break everything else except the needle, so I'm going to have to go and find myself another needle.